coming through.
Thank you.
Welcome to the UC MBA and Executive Education Masterclass series. Today we have the privilege of talking to Puneet and Kieran, who won the Global Startup of the Year award right here from Christchurch, Aotearoa. So Puneet, Kieran, you're obviously way more than just now UC MBA alumni. You're also entrepreneurs in your own sense. Please introduce yourselves.
Thank you for having us, Elsa Marie. My name is Puneet. I'm a New Zealand qualified and registered pharmacist. Been in the pharmacy industry for about 15 years. Started my MBA journey here at UC a few years ago, wanting to go through a change in my career and learn a bit more about how businesses are run in other industries and then just pharmacy, and ended up here.
My name is Kieran. I've been in the entrepreneurial space for nearly 25 years now. Started from my first company when I was at high school and through till today. Privilege of joining Puneet on this journey for ScriptSense. We've had a wonderful reception to the idea and the product, and we're really excited for the future.
So before we delve into both those individual journeys, tell us what ScriptSense is and why you guys won this Startup of the Year award.
ScriptSense is a new generation modern pharmacy management platform. A pharmacy management platform is the software that the pharmacist uses to dispense your prescription when you go to the chemist to get your medication. So that is everything. It produces labels, it checks your medication, checks your prescription, verifies a lot of information against a lot of different sources, whether it's a GP, whether it's your lab results, blood tests, whether it's your specialist appointments, all of that kind of stuff. So the software that makes it possible for the pharmacist to do all of these jobs is called a pharmacy management platform, and ScriptSense is the latest of those. It's the first of its kind in New Zealand and very likely the world. We are using cutting edge technologies such as cloud computing, machine learning, to make the pharmacist's job easier and much more thorough, so that they can pick up prescription mistakes routinely, quickly, easily, and every single time if there is a mistake that needs to be picked up. So that's what ScriptSense is.
So tell me how you got to this idea, both in terms of just within your MBA journeys, because this kind of resulted, you were in class together, right? But then also what sparked this idea of why this system?
It all started at a coffee in Taitap, actually, where Puneet and I met to discuss the state of pharmacy technology. Puneet knew me as a technologist and somebody who's been in a software and run a software company before, and had a sense of that there was a problem in the industry. So we chatted for a couple of hours, and a few things really stood out as an opportunity. Namely, for me, the largest thing was, although it being a purpose-driven product, in terms of the domain, the thing that stood out was the monopolistic nature of that industry. And usually monopolies say opportunity to me, meaning that in this particular instance, most pharmacy software companies around the world started with the computerization of that industry back in the 1980s. And whatever solution was in place just became the industry standard. Which meant not very much innovation has occurred in that space. So the thing that stuck out to me most was the high barriers of entry for a medical product and the one vendor nature of it. So we start digging in more at that point, didn't we?
Yeah, so that's how it sort of came about. So I kind of started through my MBA lectures and journey and talking to other colleagues during the MBA. I started thinking about, okay, what is happening in other industries, how they're using newer technologies, and why we are not using those technologies in pharmacy, and what opportunities they presented. And as Kieran said, I knew him via the MBA. He's a technologist, been at the helm of many multinational companies. So I went to him, we had a good chat. It made sense to me as a pharmacist that we have this better product that will make my life as a pharmacist easier. and potentially thousands of other pharmacists throughout New Zealand and the world. But it needed to make business sense at the same time for it to be a business. That's where Kieran's analysis came in, and then we started our market research. We went out to hundreds of pharmacists. We talked to them about the problem and the potential solution that might be possible through our research and what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I can remember whiteboard sessions up on level 7 of Rahua. That was quite an interesting journey, taking the concept, because pharmacists are really good small business managers or owners.
Yeah.
That's typically what they are, as owner-operated businesses. So to counteract that with the software approach, which is sell to the world, how many hundreds of millions of dollars in sales do we need to make before this is going to make financial sense? And we sort of melded the two, didn't we? Is to say, how do we get a product that is designed from an owner-operator's perspective to fit this VC-funded software model?
You're using a lot of words that sounds very familiar, kind of from your Innovation by Design course, right? So explain potentially that process that created a bit of a framework to this runway that now resulted in this successful company.
Yeah, the Innovation by Design in particular was a course that meant a lot to both Puneet and I.
Yes.
We took one particular part of that learning and applied it very heavily through the ScriptSense journey, one of which was that understanding the problem and putting aside your own assumptions was critical. Initially, Puneet had a very good understanding from his perspective of what the problem was, but we needed to validate that really was a problem and that it wasn't something else. So we didn't start with the solution, we started with what is our problem, and we had a sense of what it might be. We spent a long time in discovery, and that was critical to the success of the project.
Yeah, we heavily followed the duck tree model throughout our journey and a lot of validation, and we went to very early in our journey, we went to a pharmacy owners conference in Queenstown, where there were like 300 pharmacists that we got an opportunity to talk to and display our prototype, and they all kind of liked it. We had a overwhelming tick of approval at that point, and that made us back ourselves from there onwards, and we went straight into development mode beyond that point. So yeah.
Amazing. And talk a little bit about the hurdles that you experienced along the way. So from previous conversations, I know that you mentioned that you took a long time in that discovery mode and kind of just fleshing out what the solution is going to look like. But also you came from a very specialist background, regulatory issues. Talk a little bit about some of those hurdles along the way.
There were a lot of challenges that we've gone through to come this far. To begin with, there hasn't been a new pharmacy management platform in New Zealand for the last 20-25 years. So there's no official documentation that exists that says you've got to do all of these things and then you will have a compliant product. So we had to go out and gather all of this documentations. There may be about a dozen different agencies that are involved that the pharmacy management platform needs to talk to make it compliant. So we had to go out all of these agencies, make connections, build relationships, gather this documentation, understand it, and then go, okay, how long is it going to take us? How much capital is going to need? And we had put our own capital into the product, and that was running out quickly. So we had to make some hard decisions. So we had to re-strategize what we thought was going to happen in the next 6 months at that point again, and had to start thinking about the capital raise at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite right. There's a big difference between being in love with an idea and a product and wanting to run a business. Puneet and I have a lot of blood on the floor between us now, and sweat and tears and emotions, the journey of starting the business. So finding the group of people that not just technically capable, but also willing to dig in. People see the fun of selling a business for tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, and that sounds exciting, but usually those people have sacrificed a lot to get to that lucky moment when everything went right for them.
Yeah.
In terms of strategy, there was a conference in Queenstown where we showed an early demonstratable product that wasn't a working product. It just demonstrated the features that we were trying to show, and the market responded overwhelmingly well. And mine, having been to those shows in the past, I'm used to getting a few people out of 100 that love the idea, and this, it was the opposite. It was more like 99 out of 100 said, when can we buy this? So it showed how much the pharmacy industry was willing to change. Also, some external factors were helping that, being COVID was still very top of everybody's mind. So in 2001, when we first discussed this, we were still going through rolling lockdowns in some parts of the country. There was a willingness to accept change, and we were looking for technological solutions to help, whereas in the past that had been the domain of personal expertise.
Yeah, it's an interesting industry, as in health. People are very averse to change for good reason. So they're probably one of the lagging industry that hugs new innovation. So they don't tend to do that. Pharmacists, doctors, they generally sit in the category where they're happy to sit back and let other industries go forward, and then they will adopt some of the technological changes. However, going through COVID, changed that mindset of the entire industry. They had to adapt. They had to adopt newer technologies as well. Through COVID, we saw that. So the use of electronic prescriptions went skyrocketing straight away because people didn't want to touch a piece of paper or pass it on amongst each other. So at that point, the technology adoption went up. Then we had the COVID immunization register, which was a completely new product, and people had to adapt to it overnight. So now we are finding, when we're going and talking to pharmacists, they are much more willing to adopt new technology and change in that respect. And that has been very, very helpful as well.
And you didn't only speak to pharmacists, you had to get some regulatory changes and discussions going as well. So talk a little bit about that, because sometimes that seems like an insurmountable, too hard bucket.
Yeah, especially in the medical industry.
Yeah.
The discovery phase of building ScriptSense was very much speaking to pharmacists as well as speaking to regulatory, as you say. And the regulatory hurdles are many in that industry, and it's been a very long time since there's been any new product in this space.
Yeah.
For example, how a pharmacist makes its money is claiming for the medicines that they have given to you, and they might charge you nothing or a small fee. But the rest of the medicine has been purchased at its full price by the pharmacist. So that's something I didn't know before we entered this industry. So the pharmacist will have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of their own stock on the shelves. So when they give that over to you, they want to accurately charge the government for that money. So the systems in place for that happening electronically are so old that we had to stand up old MSN Messenger technology that is still used in today's pharmacy and system at the health system in New Zealand. There was actually quite a few revelations through that period of things I didn't know were really a thing. When you hand over your prescription to the pharmacist, there is an assumption that as a layperson that they're fetching the medicines and putting them in a bag. The clinical analysis that goes on behind the scenes is in depth and takes a lot of time and skill and expertise. So it's been quite a journey for me learning how pharmacy operates and what the problems of it are.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to change is that when we do a lot of these checks, they are ad hoc in nature, dare I say that. So sometimes these checks happen, other times they don't, because the pharmacist relies on the knowledge they've gathered in their head or acquired in their head and applying that to a piece of paper that's in front of them. Now, because it's all in your head, there is not a process that you can replicate reliably as much as you want to. You will miss some things, and we want to automate all of that, and that's where it's sort of my head as a pharmacist goes, okay, why aren't we using technologies, newer technologies such as machine learning, cloud computing, to make all of this happen, that the verifications of the medication that you're taking can happen by the machine, and then the pharmacist gets to make the final clinical decision saying, okay, that information that they have been presented with, they are happy with all of this information, because there will be exceptional circumstances that the machine can't handle, and the pharmacist has to do that by themselves. However, collating all this information is quite cumbersome, and often it doesn't happen. That's what ScriptSense is sort of set out to do, collating all of this information, making verifications in the background, presenting it to the pharmacist, hopefully in real time as well, so that the process is efficient. Pharmacists get more time to talk to the patients in person, and all the validations are kind of done on each prescription, whether or not the pharmacist already understands this medication well enough or not.
Yeah.
The information sort of there for them.
It sounds like so much depends on kind of human expertise and what's in the pharmacist's head, but also that opens it up for human error. But in this instance, human error could be fatal.
Exactly. So there is hundreds of deaths that happen in New Zealand. The figure is different from depending on what sources you look at, but there's definitely in hundreds. And at ScriptSense, we believe if this number is positive or any more than zero, that's problematic, because that should not happen in today's day and age when the technologies are democratized, so you can use all of this for the benefit of the humankind. And a ChatGPT just spitting out your answers to something random that you've asked, that may be useful, but the real benefit of such technologies in the spaces that we operate in, where human health, any error could be fatal, as you just said. So we want to be preventing all of that through the use of technology.
Now, you've rolled the system out in a few pharmacies, and obviously when you guys won the award earlier this year, there was a lot of media about it, and some people have reached out and said, thank you, you've saved my life, or tell us a few of those stories.
Sure. There's two stories I'm thinking of. One is when we had a phone call from a former patient who nearly died due to a medication error, and saw the press that had been generated around what ScriptSense has been doing, and reached out and told us her story. And that was quite a heartfelt moment for all of us, I believe. We are doing this because we want to reduce harm in the pharmacy or in the medical space. Getting some feedback to say that we're doing that well was amazing. Other things from the industry are just seeing how many new robotics revolutions are around the corner in a global sense, but for certain markets, the software vendor that dominates the space can really pick and choose who they want to deal with. So for us, one of the great opportunities is being an open platform that democratizes that choice for the pharmacist. They can have the world-class solution for all parts of their business, and that will mean more people go to their pharmacist rather than go to their general practice doctor when they need basic advice or small things. When you go to your doctor, that means there's less people clamouring to do that, so it's easier to get into the doctor, and because it's easy to get into the doctor, you don't just go to the after-hours emergency. So our hope and our belief is that by unplugging this small component of the health system, it would have a knock-on effect throughout it.
That's amazing. I mean, we can chat for another 2 hours just on the monetization of open source models, etc. But I think listening to both of you, we forget that, I mean, you were older when you started this, you already had a bunch of other things going, you'd started other companies as well, Kieran, you were studying full-time, you have families. I think colour in a little bit of that, because all of the things that you've mentioned here just sounds like things that some entrepreneurs, even if they were committed to this full-time, would just have been like, actually, these are unsurpassable mountains. But you guys tackled all of this within a very kind of diverse spectrum of other activities that you were doing. So give a little bit of that colour.
One of the biggest benefits and supercharges for our project was a decision that Puneet made when you left pharmacy and decided to be in the business full time. I know that was a very difficult decision for everybody, because that, well, for you particularly, you've got a wife and 2 children to support. In fact, we often call your youngest child a ScriptSense baby because he was born at about the same time that we started the company.
Wow.
He's now 2.
Wow, yeah.
The entrepreneurial journey has its real sugar hits in that you have opportunities to change the world, really. But yeah, you forget, so you don't get told often the challenges that come with that. Certainly the personal sacrifices along the way, the not seeing our children or our wife for weeks on end through a rollout takes a toll. It takes a toll at home. So whilst we've achieved a lot, it'd be silly to not say that we had great support. I know both Puneet and I have the full support of our partners, and that made a big difference in this business because success is not guaranteed. In fact, the numbers say failure is far more likely. So we're happy to be past the statistical balance where that's not true, but there's a big leap of faith to get here, isn't it?
Yeah, it has been a challenging but very, very rewarding journey. So coming from purely a pharmacy background and not having any other experience in other industries or business experience, I came to the MBA school to broaden my horizons a little bit, possibly even get out of the pharmacy industry. And when I just started putting the two and two together and learning what was happening in other industries, started applying back to the pharmacy because that's what I knew best. Things started becoming clearer and clearer. And there was a point, as Kieran mentioned, that I had to give my pharmacy job, and that's all I've known forever. It was very, very difficult moment. We, two small children, all of my family and my wife's family, they're both back in India, so we don't have any external support. It's just the two of us, supporting a family, supporting a mortgage. It was very, very difficult thing to do, and having to put capital into the business. It was all happened prior to our capital raise, so it was very challenging. But at the same time, the fire in the belly was there to make a difference, to make a change. We were told when we were doing our market research that you will never succeed because this is a market that is dominated by a single player. You will never get anywhere. We were told by many, many people, and there was a fire in the belly, as I say, just to prove them wrong, because we really could see the future. We had the right team in Kieran, our other co-founder, Rigel, and the technology expertise that he has. We were confident, but we were also you need to sort of stop thinking that you are invincible, you know. So there's a bit of a balance between going ahead, but also being realistic about it. So lots of challenges, internal, external, as we talked about the regulatory kind of stuff, and then we had to go out and raise capital in a very, very difficult market environment. But it's been very rewarding so far. Yeah,
that's right. Last year in particular was a very difficult fundraising year. Interest rates are very high, and in aggregate that makes a big difference to funds that invest in many things. So I know it can seem odd somehow that 3 or 4 percentage points could make a difference to somebody who's making a 100-to-1 bet as to your success. You know, what difference does 3% make, 4% make? And you know, those funds work in aggregate, so 3 or 4% is actually quite meaningful. So interest rates made a big difference. I think one of the biggest learnings for me was the robust shareholders agreement that we did start with. When you put your first money in, which is usually your own money, it seems a bit tasteless sometimes to give the first couple of $1,000s to a lawyer, but in our instance it was critical that we did do that, especially when you're building your own IP like we are. The ownership of that becomes very important and can come and hurt you later. So we did make do the right path. We set ourselves up properly, and that was hugely beneficial. The other things we learned along the way is there's no substitute for testing. The ideas that we had were good. We first roll out to the first pharmacy. We would say now is a success, but at the time it felt terrifying. We've got a customer in front of us in a domain where failure is not acceptable. That we have to. The product was, of course, not finished. It was needed much more to go, but there's no substitute for the pain of user testing. And we embraced that thoroughly. I think Puneet lived at the pharmacy for 2 weeks straight.
It's been exactly right. Like you can't, no amount of lab testing, so to speak, will replicate what is going to happen in reality, in the real life. So you when you're building a product or service or whatever, it has to be tested on real life users. Otherwise, your product will never be well rounded. So we learned quite a lot through it. We had assumptions that we had made, because you do need to make those assumptions, and some of those were completely incorrect. So we had to tweak the system to match those reworked assumptions, and
Rewrite it completely in some cases, didn't we?
yeah, exactly. So there are always going to be ongoing challenges, but I think what is important, that you understand that yes, there will be challenges, and yes, you will get passed through them if you have a strategy and you believe in your mission and your team. It's been you must believe your team. Yeah.
And I would be remiss not to ask the role that the MBA played in all of this and going forward as well. I mean, it seems like you've had such a busy 2-3 years studying, finishing up, and rolling out this whole company, amongst other things as well. So kind of, what role did the MBA play, but also what's next for both of you?
For me, MBA's played a crucial role in being the person who I am today, because as I say, I started out wanting to move away from pharmacy, and I've kind of ended up right in it. We now weeks away from owning a pharmacy, having this software product in the same industry. I had never thought that will be a possibility, or if I ever want to do that. But going through the program, meeting all the colleagues, Kieran, that changed what I wanted to do with my life entirely. And so I can say, like, my last few years have been centered around the MBA program, and what I've learned, and the networks that I've made through the program. So and ScriptSense is I can confidently say, is a product of the MBA school here at UC.
Amazing.
For me, the MBA is a critical thinking degree, and I wanted to initially validate my learnings of my own career. So that was an arrogance that I had when I first joined the MBA program, that I learned was incorrect. There's an awful lot of really great teachings that you have as part of the program. It also shows you wayfinding signage that you already know the C of, but you don't know where you are. So it gives you a really good way of articulating problems to other people, because now you have far more to draw on. The critical thinking, design thinking component was fundamental for me. I know that has played a huge part in how we've approached the problem that ScriptSense solves, and it was, and also the community that comes with the MBA was foundational. It's how Puneet and I met each other. It's how I've met other people from the MBA that have contributed in very meaningful ways to my life and business. So the MBA has been a fantastic program for me, both being more reflective of my own self and my own thought processes, and also putting some signage or wayfinding process to what I had learnt on the job previously.
I can add another line to that, actually. Looking forward, and as we're going through our ScriptSense journey and thinking about internationalization and globalization, that kind of stuff, I find myself from the back of my brain, certain concepts, they just sparkle out, saying, oh yeah, that's what I read or learned in the MBA school, or in that lecture, or in that class. So I'm finding that is happening more and more to me, because I didn't have context to those teachings when I was learning all of that. But now, as I'm going through this process, all of that is coming back, and I think that's very refreshing to think that that MBA is coming out into my journey in unexpected kind of ways, and that's really good.
Well, I must say that, you know, running the program and looking at how we structure the program, the content of the program is a third, right? And 2/3 is creating that platform of like-minded individuals who network with each other and talk, but also share their learnings in the classroom. And thinking back on both your journeys in the MBA, I can truly say that you've contributed more than your fair share to the class, to the network, to the community that's resulted from that, and businesses that have resulted from that. So we also just want to thank you for your service and your expertise. Where is ScriptSense now, and what next?
So ScriptSense is in its tail end of its testing phase. So that is in a pharmacy in Christchurch. We have a long list of pharmacies that are desperate to install the product in their locations, and we're excited for where that can lead. On the further horizons, the strategy is to beachhead the regulatory environments in several other countries. So we'll start with Australia and the UK and Canada, and from there we will likely seek another funding round to execute on that.
Yeah, we're getting, ScriptSense is getting mentions in the Australian pharmacy community, and we've got people reaching out from over there across the ditch saying, hey, when are you guys coming over to Australia? So it's looking really exciting in the next 8 to 12 months. I think we want to be, and I think it's very likely that will happen too. We want to be in another country, as Kieran said, so beachhead, possibly in Australia, but we are working through what that next country looks like means. Yeah.
So rolling out in a pharmacy near you?
So we've had very keen interest from a few large national organisations within New Zealand, and they have, their membership runs into 2/3 of the market. So if we are able to convert all of them, or even most of them, we will have the lion's share of the New Zealand market. With the features that are under development and the workflows that are under development, we have good indication from the pharmacists who are looking at those that those will be very successful products. Even some of the technology that we're harnessing from the browsers inbuilt expertise, even those are proving to be life-changing for some of our customers. So we are excited and confident that maybe in the next 18 months or so, we will have a large part of the New Zealand market. Globally, it's a large market as well, and the infrastructure and the pharmacy setup, they are very similar in Australia, UK, Ireland, Canada, and the US. US is just slightly different, but I think the basics they are very, very same. So all of these markets are the target markets. We've had some industry partners who have taken that route, and they are going into Canadian and the British markets now. And we will take learnings from those partners, and we will try and follow their footsteps there.
But is it then to become the next monopoly?
Well, I hope not. And the reason for that is that we saw a lack of innovation in the software space in pharmacy, and a good reason for there being no innovation was because there was a monopoly. So whilst we're offering a very open solution that can have lots of connectors into it, and it's interoperable for the pharmacy market, it's important that there remains, we're on our toes, and we are striving for making the best, smartest, safest pharmacy management system in the world. And the only way we're going to do that is if we've got somebody snapping at our heels constantly. So I hope not the next monopoly, but I'll take a lion's share of the market if it's happening. The great thing about software is that it's very light and very cheap to export. So for New Zealand, where we're far away from everywhere, a product that is easy to export and easy to scale up holds a certain appeal. So there are examples of other companies in New Zealand that have done that really well.
Totally.
Companies like Xero. They've done that for
Sequent.
the accounting.
Yes, Sequence Local, our first
exactly.
unicorn and software company.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's lots of opportunity to follow in those footsteps and show the world where New Zealand can go. And I'm very proud to be founding a company here in New Zealand and changing the world from Aotearoa.
We look forward to watching your futures unfold with great success. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elsemarie.